sons of the also famous lawyer, that is Douglas Doug Coltard is the son of David Coltard, actually, who is currently the Zimbabwean mayor in the city of Bulawayo. Coltard has been a member of parliament. At one point, he was also the minister of education, doing well during the government of national unity. His son has actually circulated a legal opinion regarding what is currently taking place in the Parliament of Zimbabwe, warning about the consequences of these. And I'll be reading on word to word the opinion of Doug Coltard. Greetings and welcome to your lovely channel, the Hlonipani Global News. If you're watching us for the very first time, please do remember to press the red or black subscribe button so that next time when we beam live, you become the very first one to watch us. So it's written agent by Doug Coltard, and it says legal opinion for all members of the National Assembly by Doug Coltard. Constitutional Amendment Bill number 3, 2026. It says Senate amendments need to preserve fixed electoral cycles and prevent an unintended constitutional loophole. That's how he has titled this. It says executive summary. This legal opinion has been prepared and solicited on behalf of all members of the National Assembly, including both the proponents and the opponents of the Constitutional Amendment Bill number 3. This is because I am of the strong legal opinion that the Senate's proposed amendments to Constitutional Amendment Bill number 3 create a serious constitutional loophole, which I believe may be unintentional, and the proponents of the bill may be aware of, since it has never been presented by the bill's proponents at the intention of the bill. Therefore, in this opinion, I have put aside the merits and demerits of the bill as a whole to ensure that both proponents and opponents of the bill understand the gravity of this loophole and can cooperate to ensure its closure. The loophole, as presently drafted, there is a credible legal argument that a president elected by parliament to fill a vacancy following the death, resignation, or removal of a president would begin a fresh 7-year presidential term, and that this could in turn trigger a fresh 7-year parliamentary term, thereby postponing the next general election. This constitutional loophole could be repeatedly exploited indefinitely, with the result that Zimbabwe may never have a general election ever again. This is because a president could resign or be removed shortly before the expiry of his or her term. Parliament could elect a successor, and the successor's assumption of office could arguably restart the constitutional cycle for both the presidency and parliament. This process could theoretically be repeated indefinitely, allowing the life of parliament to be continually renewed without the electorate ever being called upon to vote in another general election. So this is the argument that is presented, that Constitutional Amendment Bill number 3 at its current state, if a president resigns before the end of his term, the next person taking over could be just given another 7 years, and the parliament would be continuing without being voted for as long as this current system and status quo intends. Okay, let me just continue. I'm not a fund, I would not be explaining more. Whether a court would ultimately adopt that interpretation cannot be predicted with certainty. However, legislation, particularly constitutional legislation, should not leave open an ambiguity capable of producing consequences so fundamentally incoherent with democratic governance. All this scenario was never presented to Parliament by the proponents of the bill as being the intention behind the bill. We must give the benefit of the doubt that the loophole has been created inadvertently. Therefore, it should be uncontroversial for members of the National Assembly from across the political divide to unanimously close that loophole to make it expressly clear. So that's the first page. Let me just, I was trying to go to another page, but let me just do this. Okay, I'm on the second page. 1. A president elected to fill a vacancy serves only the remainder of the previous president's term. And 2, the election of such a president does not commence a new parliamentary or electoral cycle. The Senate's recommendation provides an opportunity to make those principles explicit and close the loophole. The existing constitutional scheme. The current constitution establishes a clear distinction between two different methods by which a person assumes the office of the president. First, under Section 941, a president elected following a general elections assumes office after taking the prescribed oath. Secondly, under Section 943, where a successor assumes the office of the president following the death, resignation, or removal of the president, that successor assumes office under a separate constitutional mechanism. This distinction is significant. Section 143 links the duration of Parliament specifically to the assumption of office of a president under Section 941. Consequently, where a president assumes office under Section 943, president's existing term continues uninterrupted and the constitutional election timetable remains intact. Section 101 deals with succession in the event of death, resignation, or incapacity of the president. In its current form in the Constitution, as amended by Constitutional Amendment Bill number 2, it does not explicitly state that a person who succeeds the president assumes office until the expiry of their term. This was explicitly stated in the original Section 101 of the 2013 Constitution. However, it is clearly still the current legal position that a successor in terms of Section 101 does not create a new election cycle for at least 3 reasons. 1, the current Section 101 provides for the successor to be nominated by the political party which the former president was elected. Therefore, such a person could not assume office in terms of Section 941A, which explicitly requires that it must be on the 9th day after they are declared elected, i.e. following an election, not a nomination by political party of the former president. 2, the existence of Section 943 in the current Constitution provides a separate mechanism for a president to assume office following the death, resignation, or removal. Ensures that Section 1431 is not triggered in such circumstances, while Section 943 in the current Constitution is inelegantly drafted following Constitutional Amendment Bill number 2. The presumption against surplusage ensures that it nevertheless serves that purpose. 3, the current Section 921 of the Constitution explicitly states that the election of a president must take place within the period specified in Section 158. For example, the timing of elections provisions Thus, president's term is tied to the election cycle rather than vice versa. Therefore, the present constitution avoids any possibility that a mid-term succession could restart the electoral cycle. 2. Effect of the Senate amendments. The Senate introduced a new clause 4 of the bill which proposes repealing section 943 altogether. Once repealed, the constitution would contain only one mechanism by which a president assumes office in terms of section 94(1). At the same time, the Senate also proposes in clause 7 of the bill replacing section 101 so that following the death, resignation, or removal of a president, the vice president merely acts as president until Parliament elects a new president under the proposed section 92. Accordingly, every president, including one elected following a vacancy, would appear to assume office under the only remaining assumption of office provision that has potentially drastic unintended consequences. 3. The constitutional loophole. The bill introduces parliamentary elections to the office of the president whenever a vacancy occurs. In doing so, the bill would repeal the current section 921, which provides that the election of the president must take place within the period specified in section 158, that is the constitution provision on timing of elections. Instead, the amended would simply provide that Parliament elect a president whenever a vacancy occurs, section 92, section 101. That president assumes office under the ordinary constitutional oath, section 941. The president's term is 7 years, section 95. Parliament's term is linked to the assumption of office of the president in terms of section 941A, section 143(1), and the future elections are calculated by reference to Parliament's term, section 158(1). Read actually literally, these provisions are capable of supporting the argument that each parliamentary election of a replacement of president commences a fresh constitutional cycle. Nowhere does the bill expressly state that a president elected following a vacancy serves only the remainder of the former president's term in order to close that loophole. Although a court might reject that interpretation by adopting a purposive construction, legislation should not depend upon judiciary implications to preserve one of the most fundamental principles of constitutional democracy, regular elections. 4. Potential consequences. If this ambiguity is not corrected, the following sequence could occur. Parliament elects a president following a general election. Shortly before expiry of the 7-year term, the president resigns and is removed by Parliament. Parliament elects a replacement president. The replacement president assumes office. It is argued that the assumption of office commences a 7-year presidential and parliamentary term. The date of the next general election is correspondingly postponed. The same process could then be repeated before each subsequent election. Whether or not such an argument would ultimately succeed before the courts, it is beside the point. The Constitution should not admit an interpretation capable of permitting Parliament's democratic mandate to be extended indefinitely without returning to the electorate. Proposed amendments. The National Assembly can remove the ambiguity through 2 simple amendments. A. Reject the Senate's repeal of Section 943. Rather than deleting Section 943, the National Assembly should retain it while adapting it to reflect the new parliamentary method of electing the president. The section could read 943. A person elected president in terms of Section 927 assumes office by taking before the Chief Justice or the next most senior judge available the oath of president in the third schedule on the 9th day after they are declared to be elected, or in the event of a challenge validity of their elections within 48 hours after the Constitutional Court has declared them to be the winner. So that is the loophole that has been exposed by David Coltard, that the actually proposed Senate amendments could ensure that there would be no elections in Zimbabwe, because it is not clear that when a new president is elected by the parliament, then that president starts a fresh term according to the Senate proposed amendment, especially on Section 943. And so today, these parliamentarians, if they just accept what the senators have actually proposed, then that will mean that, and we know ZANU-PF will capitalize on this. At the moment, CAB.3 is illegal, but they made sure that it sails through in spite of Zimbabweans warning that this is an illegal process. And I can only say, the only thing that could make sense now is actually to use force to stop all this nonsense that is taking place in Zimbabwe. Thank you very much for watching us. If you are watching us for the very first time, please do remember to press the red or black subscribe button so that next time when we beam live, you become the very first one to watch. You can financially support this channel by pressing the join button and be part of our members who are the heartbeat of this channel. You can equally do so by pressing the thanks button and send us stars